Oh, shoot. I just lost it. Hey, it's Joe West from the West Barn with
Mike Shimshack.
And today our guest is Gabe Adams.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome, Gabe. Gabe is a motivational speaker. He's also a recording artist and someone that I got to hang out with this last year and got to meet and have an incredible experience with. But it's good to see. I was just telling him it's good to see his face. It's like when you see an old friend that you haven't seen for a minute, you get that sort of wash over you of just feels good. So it's good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you too.
And you are in Utah currently, yes?
Yes.
This is where you're based out of, but you've moved since we hung out last time, but you still in Salt Lake?
Yes. Closer to Salt Lake now.
Awesome. Before we get started, I want to remind everybody to like and subscribe and hit notifications, whether you're watching us on YouTube or on any of the podcast platforms. Go ahead and hit whatever you can hit to make sure that you receive a notification that we're going to be having a new episode out. So Gabe Adams, now you don't need to adjust your television set. Gabe doesn't have any arms or legs, right?
Correct.
So Gabe was born with Hanhart Syndrome, which is a syndrome that, how it's 1 in a million, right? I think that was the number.
Correct. Yeah.
He's 1 in a million. I think we shot a documentary together and that would have been a great name for the documentary, maybe better than the one we came up with. But we want to talk about that doc, but let's hear a little bit about you and let me tell people real quick how I was introduced to you, which was I was on Facebook and I was scrolling down and I saw this dude with no arms or legs making macaroni and cheese. And I was like, okay, this is where I'm spending the next 8 minutes, of my life. And I was just like overwhelmed by it and I'm like inspired by it. It was a little doc by a company called Born Different, but it just sort of followed you around, talked about it. It was really heartwarming. There was a bunch of great personal and family stories in it, but the overwhelming impact was that there was this dude that was just blowing my mind, going up and down stairs, making macaroni and cheese, totally self-sufficient and had no arms and no legs and was doing it, not just doing it, but slam dunking it. So it was like, wow, man, how about if I had a little more of that in my life? I could be doing, what more could I do? And it was a true inspiration seeing you, and it's sort of one of those life check gut moments. So I want to thank you for that.
Of course. Thank you.
And come to find that Gabe travels all over the country doing keynote speeches for corporations as well as motivational speaking and gives of his time quite a bit for causes that he believes in, but is very well compensated and goes in and is able to talk to people and companies and change the way they see the world. Not many people can do that. And you do that. Why don't you tell us a little bit, give us the condensed version of your story from Brazil to here, the family, and sort of what got you to where you're at today?
A lot of it just came from overcoming challenges. And as you can tell, I've had to overcome a lot of challenges. And so when I go out on stages and stuff like that, I try and convert it back to my audiences because everybody faces challenges every single day, whether that's in their families, work, friendship, relationships, jobs, whatever it may be. And they all may seem impossible, but I just want to remind everybody when I'm out on that stage that nothing's impossible and you can overcome any obstacle that comes over your way.
And the other thing that you do that I didn't mention is that you dance, like insane dance, like blow your mind dancing. After I had seen that video, I went all over the internet and was searching, and there was, I guess, an Inside Edition piece where these people are out on a basketball court. I'm like, oh, I've seen this a million times. And then dude comes flying in from side of frame, which is Gabe, dude. And then just like does this helicopter thing and flips upside down. And so it was really one of those like, once it was like, you know how YouTube is. You start on one thing and then 8 hours later, you're like deep down into the weeds of it, so.
Yeah.
But you were born in Brazil and was put into an orphanage and then was found by a family, a large family in Utah of 9 or 10.
They were pregnant with their 11th.
With their 11th. And what they needed was another child, obviously. So tell us a little bit about that. I mean, like, what do you think possesses somebody who has 11 kids to adopt another child that seems incredibly challenging from another country?
I come from a very Christian home, and so my parents just take whatever comes through them through spiritual revelation. And so my mom was the first one to gain that revelation of me being in her home and her family, and that she would be the one that would teach me my independence and everything. And my dad, funny enough, he was a LDS seminary teacher, and he was the last one to come around on the bandwagon, just because he already knew that we had 11 kids at the time, and he wasn't making that enough money or anything like that. So he was like, Janelle, sorry, we can't adopt him right now. And she's like, we're going to end up adopting him. You just need to go get your own revelation. And so he came back to her like a week later after going to the LDS temple. And he had this little revelation of seeing my brother, who's the same age as me, helping me throughout life and everything like that. And that was his own experience of knowing that I was supposed to come into the family. And little did he know that everything of that revelation was 100% true. And my brother's always been there to help me. So, yeah.
And I'm sure you talk about it whenever you're saying, like, this was not a natural thing. It was a learned behavior. Like, you were mad at your family quite a bit for not doing things for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it was just like, you just got on board with it, right? And then now it became a strength rather than this thing. Yeah,
oh, yeah.
It's a learned behavior to do things for yourself and to overcome the lot in life you've been given. And not just overcome it, but then to exceed it and become this thing, right?
So true. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, so later in life, okay, the dancing took over and then it sort of blossomed into us meeting online. And then I made a phone call and we talked, but it was like, I didn't really know what we were going to do. I just knew that I was super inspired by you. And it was like, when I see an artist that I want to make a record with, I was just like, I had that feeling like, oh, let's do something creative together and see what could become of it. And of course, my recollection is, hey, Mike, is your mic on? We don't have audio from you. Are you muted? Maybe log off and come back on if you have to. I don't want to miss out on you.
Hello.
There he is.
Sorry, I don't know what happened. Here's a kid.
But my recollection was that I was just like calling you on the phone, right? We were like FaceTiming, and it's just like, I'm 50, you're not. You know, it's like, what do these people have in common? You know, it's like guy with no arms or legs that is a breakdancer from Utah and a 50-year-old dude, you know? And that was cool for me because it was like, there was still something that was like, oh, I want to be around that dude, right? There's something about you that I was like compelled by. We started talking and I was like, what, do you sing? You're like, yeah, I sing. And then you started sending me voice memos. And I thought, man, he's got a really good voice, like David Archuleta kind of tone. And your pitch is uncanny. You know, I'm in the studio with people, and Mike, you can attest to this. Sometimes it's a struggle, man, to like get people to sound good on a record.
Oh, yeah.
Man,
major struggle.
Right. You will pull your hair out making records sometimes.
Yeah.
And, you know, we didn't even need to use auto-tune on you. There may be auto-tune on that record, but it was probably put on there as a habit. You know, I'd throw an auto-tune on, you know, so if there was auto-tune, it was like not needed. So we started imagining what could become. The other part of the story that people may not know is that I have this school called the Apprentice Academy, and I've got a 15-year-old son who was a little bit younger then. And I was thinking, oh, I really wish I want to have what Gabe has, and I want Zach to have it. And I want all the guys that go to my school, all those engineers, I want them to look and get a little snippet into your life and then be able to say, hey, if I hustle and if I work hard and if I do what Gabe does, then that above all the skill, all the golden years, all the hard work of like learning a craft, that's the one thing Mike's always saying. It's like, how are you in the room? How is your hustle? How is your overcoming abilities, you know, adversities? That's what really makes you a success. So I thought, man, let's just go out and videotape this. We'll go out there, hang out in Utah, And Eddie Bauer jumped on board and helped us finance this little film. And
I'm wearing the hat today. I wear it every day almost.
oh yeah,
You should let
down. Is there a logo on it?
let people know what it's called, Joe.
Okay, yeah. So it's called. There it is. I see it.
There it is.
It's called Limb-itless. This was Gabe's tagline. Limb-itless, like limbless, but Limb-itless adventure songwriting. And it was just this experience where we went out sort of into the wild, into the outback of the unknown up there. We went to, what was the name of it? Bryce Canyon.
Yep.
And we just drove down there, hung out, went on the side of this beautiful mountain and wrote a song right there. This wasn't something that was canned or cooked. We didn't know if we were going to get it. And as we were doing that, Sean Hudgens and Zach were sort of doing the tech stuff. And Sean was flying drones overhead while we're writing, and up in our faces with cameras. It's very unnatural on this really windy mountainside, really stunning. And we wrote this great song that really is your story. That is, it's like the best part of you. These things that are all the little edges of people that make them unique, or the little things that they think are an affirmity but end up being a strength, and it was this beautiful thing that we put together in your voice that was saying, hey, that thing you thought you couldn't do, guess what? It might be the best part of you once you're able to achieve it, because what it makes you become through it, right? You get to realize what you are. And we just had this beautiful experience. I can remember booking a hotel, and then there was only 2 rooms left. And I said to Gabe, like, oh, they didn't have a handy accessible room. And you laughed at me because it was like, I didn't know you that well then.
Yeah.
But you were just like, yeah, that's not a problem at all. So we had this beautiful experience out in Utah. And then you flew down to Nashville here, and we made a record, like a real record on it. It's up on Spotify. Limb-itless adventure songwriting. You can search that. Gabe Adams, Gabeadams. The song is called The Best Part of You. So you can go find that. There's also a documentary of the whole thing on YouTube. We'll link it down in the description for this, and we'll link to Spotify and everything. So that they can go see a little bit of this, as well as maybe some of the videos of you dancing, although there's some dancing in the video or in the doc. My favorite moves that Gabe has is this helicopter move, where he lays on his stomach and then does this thing that looks like impossible. But it was just it was a beautiful experience that perfectly, for me in the school, it was like, oh, this tells, we won't talk one bit about a microphone or production or audio, but if somebody watches this video, they know everything they need to know about coming to my school. And I thought, man, isn't that a beautiful thing, So why don't you tell us what it was like for you, like going into the studio when you'd never done something like that, or like what part of that documentary was like you're pushing yourself all the time, so that probably was nothing for you, or was it?
I think that entire year of last year was pushing myself and getting completely out of my comfort zone, starting with the Born Different video and having it reach over 200 million views and everything like that. And then having someone as big as you reach out to me wanting to do a music songwriting kind of thing with me. I still remember the exact day that you called and everything. And I was in the car coming back from a speaking engagement. And I was on the freeway. And I remember telling my assistant that we needed to turn down the music because this is probably going to be big. And then you called. We had our little conversation. And you were like, well, do you sing? Do you do anything else besides dancing? And I was like, oh, yeah, I think so. And you're like, okay, well, send me over some demos and I'll let you know what I think. And I was like, oh, great, he's going to critique me. And then I sent them over to you and you're like, these are actually pretty good. And I was like, oh, okay. And then you're like, well, I actually want to take this one next step forward and write a song with you. It's like, oh, okay. And so that's when it really hit me that another one of my childhood dreams is going to come true. And then we ended up meeting up, shooting the video and the song and everything. And then when we went to Nashville and he showed me all over Nashville and like the downtown part of it was so remarkable and everything. I still remember that too. And then I remember I was getting ready for New York Fashion Week and we were still
we have to talk in detail about that, but go ahead.
Yeah, we were working out the demo and everything. And so I was coming back on the plane and I listened to it and I just sobbed my eyes out because everything that New York trip was everything that the song was. So it was really awesome.
You know what I loved about the doc is that there's moments where lines that didn't exist, like we were sitting on my front porch here finishing the song. We did half in Utah, half here. And it's like we're talking about a topic and then you just would spit out a line. And it was like that was the first time that line ever existed. You know, so very rarely as a songwriter do you get to actually see the moment a line in a song shows up, right? And it was so cool because that whole second verse was really a conversation we were having out there, and it almost went down, the first verse too, it almost went down just like our conversation. It just so happened that we found words that rhymed, you know, and as a songwriter, I don't get that, you know, we don't get that a lot.
It's always like the funnest part of the whole experience is coming up with what rhymes and everything.
Yeah. And the record came out great as well. I mean, it's a really cool record. It got a lot of the guys from the school worked on it, engineered it, did some programming on it. Some guys mixed it. So it was a really great thing to see come full circle. Very rarely in life do you get full circle moments. And that was one that was just it's kind of sealed there in a perfect little bow with that documentary and with the piece of music. But tell us about, so this is really going to blow your minds. So Gabe has an assistant, not so much anymore, right?
Correct.
So, on, off, I don't know. So Gabe's assistant came down, beautiful girl. What was her name?
Bailey.
We had a lot of fun with Bailey. Gabe decides to go to Fashion Week because someone wants him to walk the runway in Fashion Week, New York City. So you'd never been to New York City, right?
I've only been there once, but I went with my dad and my sister the last time I'd gone.
Okay, so Gabe flies to New York City on his own and does Fashion Week completely on his own. And you'll tell us about the story of this, but in the process, the airlines, of course, trashed your motorized wheelchair, which is pretty key to you getting around. So tell us how that works. Tell us, like, the level of anxiety of, like, me going to New York City. And I used to live there for a decade. Like, my anxiety level is up when I go to New York City. So tell me what happens when dude...
All musicians, by the way, can sympathize with you, Gabe. We've all had guitars broken and...
Yeah.
Rough. The airlines are rough.
What was going through your head to do that on your own?
So I had reached out to my assistant, Bailey, about 3 or 4 months before New York Fashion Week. And I was asking her if she could get the dates off and if she could go with me. And she had said that she could get them off, but I would have to pay her more for her time. And I was like, okay, I think I'll go by myself. And then she's like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, I think it's like another step forward in my career, in my independence and everything like that. So yeah, I'll figure it out and go on my own. And she's like, oh, okay, sounds good. And then leading up to it, I had just planned it all out in my head. I hadn't really done much other than that. And then a week before I left, I had so much anxiety that I had like a lump swelling up in my throat and everything because of how much anxiety I had. Every single night I'd wake up in the middle of the night thinking about what could possibly go wrong. And then
everything.
The night before I left, we had a family party. And I hadn't told anybody in my family that I was going by myself. They all thought that I was taking a sister with me. And so they were all asking me if I was excited. And I was like, yeah, I'll be going by myself. And they all just sat there, drank some food down, and they're like, wait, what? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, I don't know if that's a good idea. And I was like, well, it's too late. I leave tomorrow at 5 in the morning.
Where did you fly into? Which airport?
I flew into JFK.
That's what I thought. Like, it's the worst airport to fly into.
It really is.
It's like,
so
could we paint a more impossible story? It's like, what if they just like airdrop you into the middle of the Long Island Sound? You'd have to swim your way in. I mean, it's like,
that's pretty
if you're writing a Hollywood movie, they'd say, let's pull back. That's not even believable. Like, don't fly me to JFK.
So true. And so my mom...
Do you find people helping you or not wanting to help you, or because they don't want to like mess with your independence? What kind of vibe do you usually get? Like, for example, like a JFK, that's overwhelming for anybody. Like,
right.
You know?
It kind of just depends on where you're at and like your persona and everything. A lot of times I try and play it off like I do know what I'm doing and that I'm fully capable of doing it, which I'll get to later in the story because there was a time that something happened that I needed help with, and it kind of makes the whole story even better. But yeah. But anyways, back to the story. So my mom and my sisters had created a group chat, and they said that if I didn't respond in X amount of time, they would blow up my phone with messages. And then they created like a rule list of what I was allowed to do and what I was not allowed to do, which I broke pretty much all of the rules on the first day. But they didn't know that. And so I get to New York, and I get to my hotel, and there was this really, really nice doorman who ended up helping me get to my door and everything, because I had to get somewhat of a handicap accessible room so I could have my wheelchair in there, and I wasn't going to be banging up the furniture and stuff like that with my wheelchair and stuff like that. And so the first room that they put me in was way too small. And so I asked if they had a little bit bigger, and they said, yeah, of course. And so they hurried and switched me out for a new room. And the doorman was like, is there anything else you need, Mr. Adams? And I was like, what's the best pizza place around here? Because I hadn't eaten all day, and it was like 9 o'clock at night in New York. And so he's like, I think right across the street. Let me go get that for you. And I was like, oh, no, it's okay. I can go get it. And he's like, no, it's on the house. And I was like, oh, okay. And so he comes back, and he brought me like the biggest pizza box ever, which ended up lasting me my entire trip while I was there. But and then he's like, just feel free to call down and ask for me anytime you need help with anything. And I was like, oh, okay, sounds good.
Did we miss out on the wheelchair?
No, not yet. That's coming.
Okay. Because I thought that happened at the airport.
It did, but I didn't notice until the next day. So then the next day, I go to the dress rehearsal. I have to wake up super early. We were all in charge of doing our own hair and makeup before we get there. And so I woke up at like 5 o'clock, did my hair, did my makeup, got ready, left. And I needed to be there at 7. And I was already running a little bit behind. And so I was like, I'll just take a cab. I didn't know how New York cabs work. And so I get in the cab, and I tell him where I need to go. He goes to the place, but he drives around the block like 10 times just trying to run the meter. So finally I say, sir, I'm here. You can let me out. And he's like, right here? It's a busy street. And I said, that's fine. So he finally lets me out of the cab. And then I go into the dress rehearsal. I get into my outfit and everything. And then I go to do the photo shoot of the whole thing. And I go to get back into my wheelchair. And how I use my wheelchair to get in and out of it is there's a footrest on it for people who have legs and everything. And it just elevates up and down. And so I went to go get in it, and I stepped onto it, and I hit the button, and it starts elevating a little bit. And then out of nowhere, it just drops to the ground. And it's a big, huge boom. And all these people look over at me, and my face is bright red. I'm laying down on the floor. And I start sweating like crazy because I'm super embarrassed. And this sweet old guy comes up next to me, and he's like standing over the top of me, and he goes, I'm sorry, sir, but I know people like you want to be independent, but is there anything that I can do to help you? And I was like, well, yeah, sure, I guess. So he helps me back into my wheelchair. I zoom out of the room, and I call my mom on the phone, and I'm like, there's a 911 emergency. And she's like, you've been kidnapped. And I was like, if I was kidnapped, I wouldn't be calling you. And she's like, oh, okay. And then she's like, well, what? And I was like, the wheelchair broke. And she's like, even worse. I knew I shouldn't have let you go out there by yourself, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, calm down, relax. I'm the one that needs to be freaking out. And then she's like, okay, well, what are we going to do? And I was like, I don't know. That's why I called you. And then she's like, well, can't you call a wheelchair company? So I call the wheelchair company, and they say that they can't come to me until like 11 o'clock at night. And so I was like, oh, okay, sounds good. I'm already in the wheelchair. I'm not used to being in a wheelchair all day. The only time that I'd ever been in a wheelchair all day was back when I was going to school. But I've been graduated for over like 3 or 4 years now. And so I'm out of my wheelchair almost every single day. So I was in the wheelchair for about like 19 hours. of
Oh,
my
wow.
day. So my back was already starting to cramp and everything. And so I didn't get a taxi for the way back to the hotel because it was only like 5 blocks away. So I just rode the wheelchair and kind of minded my own business on the streets and everything as much as possible. And then I got to my hotel, and then I sat around and waited for the guy to come. He came and fixed my wheelchair, and I asked him how many times that happens a day where the airlines break people's wheelchairs and stuff like that. And he said, I'm out fixing people's wheelchairs at least 6 or 7 times a day from the airlines.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God.
So when you walked the runway, was it in your chair or did you walk the runway?
I walked the runway. They wanted me to be in my wheelchair. And so when I did the whole walkthrough and everything, I did it in the wheelchair, kind of just leaving it as a surprise that I wasn't going to use a wheelchair. And then right before I went out on stage for the actual runway, there were these people that were assigned to us. And so I asked the lady that was assigned to me, and I was like, I'm not going to use a wheelchair. Is that going to screw up the show? And she just looked at me and she's like, am I going to need to carry you out there? And I was like, oh, no, I can walk. And she's like, oh, okay, well, I think that should be fine. Let me just quickly notify our camera crew so then they're able to get the photos of you. And I was like, okay, sounds good. And so I ended up walking it, and I did a few flips down the runway.
That's awesome.
Like
Will you show people, just could you walk back to your bed and back just so they could see? Because I don't think people understand
of course.
how mobile you are.
Wow.
It's like a magic trick. Once you see it, right? You're like, oh, okay, I get it, but like when you were at my place, you go up onto your shoulder and be able to, there's really nothing you can't do. When I watched the video, you had like a pot between your shoulder and it's like, oh, okay. Once you see it, you're like, oh, there's no way. But then once you see it, you're like, oh, okay, I get it. But it just goes to show you, it's like there is a certain amount of that's insane that you went to New York.
Well, and that's why this whole last year was so remarkable for me, because I wasn't able to really captivate it in my mind on how far I've come on my independence until I was standing backstage and they were playing the song by Bruno Mars, Just the Way You Are.
Yeah.
And I just started sobbing backstage during the run through, because I was like, I've come so far in my life. And a lot of times I don't really give myself that pat on the back because I just think
because you're moving forward.
Yeah, and it's just normal to me. And so when I actually truly inspire myself, it wasn't until that moment that I was able to see how far I've come in my independence with learning how to walk, go up and down stairs, get myself dressed, get myself in a wheelchair.
It really is. It's like, I wanted to finish that because I didn't want to end it with me calling you insane. It's like it's like that's an insane thing to do. But then it's just devoured by this other side of you, which is complete courage, which is the inspirational part, which is like, well, why can't I do that? Okay, it doesn't make any sense, but doesn't mean I can't figure it out. It's like Apollo 13 where they figure out how to get the limb. It's like this thing that seems impossible, but then you realize it isn't. That's the beauty of what it is that you do. And it's like you hold this mirror up to people. And it's not even like, hey, look what I can do, even though it's like, look what I do, period. It's not like in spite of your infirmities or your disability. It's like the rest of us feel disabled after watching you. It's like I could see how you showing up to a keynote speech to 1,000 or 2,000 employees, how that would change the way they do business the next year. It would change the way they treat their kids, the way they live their lives, what it is they've been not doing because of they've got some bullshit excuse that they haven't been doing it for. And then it's like you come out and it's like, well, that's off the table now. I've got to readjust. It's like the first time they thought the world was flat. I know we think it's flat again. But when they thought it was flat and then somebody told them it was a globe, it was like at that moment, everybody had to stop and say, all right, I need to reconsider my worldview. And with you, it made me instantly do that, and it's like, I want to be around people that do that because I want to be like challenged. Like the fact that you would go to New York and do that is just, it's not reasonable that you would do that. but I love that you did that. It makes you who you are. That's the best part of you. No pun intended. And I also wanted to say, Gabe sent me a text. I can't remember why you even sent it to me. I think you knew the band was from Nashville, but you were obsessing over a band called OTO. And you said, do you by chance, have you worked with these guys? Do you know them? And I'm like, that's Mike's band. Which, so Gabe is the closet fan boy of OTO. So this is a big day for him getting to meet the mind behind it.
For sure.
He's like, really? That's all? That's you?
No.
A letdown.
No.
Well, I don't know how much you want to talk about this, but I do know that you recently came out right around the time of our film. Is that something that you're like, that you're out, but you don't like to really talk about it, or is it you're out and you want to talk about it?
No, I want to talk about it. And
that's what I figured.
Like I said, I grew up in a very Christian home. And so when I tried coming out when I was younger, it was a huge no-no. And there were rules and everything against it. And so when I finally became old enough and had enough courage to go up against my parents on it, was when I realized that it doesn't matter. I'm not going to always grant their wishes and everything, but I also have to live for me. And at the end of the day, they raised me to follow my heart and to be who I am. And so if they can't be happy with that, then I don't know what to tell them. And so what it really came down to is me pretty much sitting both my parents down at separate times and telling them that after I move out, I will no longer have a relationship with them if they can't get on board with who I am, because I'm not going to change for them any longer. And it was just suffocating me mentally and emotionally every single day to live a lie and not be 100% myself. And ever since I've come out, my relationship with my parents and my family has been 100% amazing.
So they got behind it.
Yeah, so supportive.
That's awesome.
Well, as if your life didn't have enough challenges, you decided you've made the conscious decision to be gay.
Top of it.
So what can we expect from you next year that can be like that you're going to top your whole life at this point? I mean, what other challenges is it that you foresee for yourself in the future? I mean, is there anything you want to do that just seems insane right now for you?
There's so much that I have planned for next year, but I think some of the top things are going to be, one, I'm getting engaged in the next 2 months.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. Awesome. 2, I'll probably be married this time of year next year.
Wait a minute. You're getting engaged. Does that mean that you already know? Like, will you ask or will he ask? How does that work, first of all? And did you just spoil it?
No.
It's not a surprise then.
No, not really, no. But we've been dating. We're coming up on our 5 months, which in Utah, that's like 500 years. And in gay world, that's like 500,000 years. So we're doing great. We just signed off on a lease, too, for an apartment, and I'll be moving in with him after we're engaged and stuff like that as well.
And how's how is the hate on all this? Is it do you get dumped on online? I think I can remember vaguely that there were some just haters piling on at certain things. I can't remember exactly what.
When you and I went to go do the other podcast that we did.
Oh, the Adam Carolla show.
Yeah, Adam Carolla show. I had just gotten a brand new iPhone and everything, and I wasn't signed into my social media until I landed in California. And I signed into my Twitter, and I was going viral for some reason. And I was like, what the hell's going on?
Sorry, my dog's going bananas. So say that one more time. You landed in California, and then what? There was something online?
Yeah, and I had gone viral on Twitter, and I was like, I haven't posted anything really on Twitter to go viral. And so I went to my profile, and it was my coming out post that was getting all these retweets, comments, and likes and stuff like that. And I looked in the comments, and it was just all these people bashing me, not for the fact that I was gay, but for the fact that I had no arms and legs, and I was standing in the middle of the street. And so there were all these nasty comments and stuff like that. And so I was kind of surprised that I was able to go out and do the Adam Carolla show, because in the back of my mind, I was in a really negative headspace on where I was going to go from there. And it wasn't until I watched another YouTube video of Nick Vujicic, who has no arms and legs.
Oh, yeah.
And he was doing this one speaking engagement on bullying. And he said, sometimes in life, people are going to either want to watch us die or grow. And we come into this world as seeds. So people are either going to water us or they're going to pour oil on us. But at the end of the day, we have the choice. And so I kind of just turned that into my own motto of, we have the choice to wake up every day and put a smile on our face. We have the choice to say hi to someone or just not say hi. We have the choice on how things affect us at the end of the day as well, because at the end of the day, we're the ones that go to bed by ourselves and with our thoughts and everything. And we choose how everything around us affects us, whether you think that or not. And it can really play a big shot in your emotions.
So
like that.
Are you saying that the hate on social media came from the fact that you have no arms, no legs?
Yeah, not even. It's still the same thing every single day. I do videos on TikTok, and it's the same thing. I did a video of me doing a contemporary dance, and people are making fun of the way that I dance or the fact that I have no limbs and all this stuff. It's just an everyday reoccurrence thing. So that's why I've learned that it's a choice to let it bug me or not.
What do you think the ratio is of good post, good comment to bad comment for you on the internet is?
Honestly, it's so hard. I feel like people are so genuine on Facebook, and it's probably because they have their grandmas on there. But on TikTok and Twitter, they're just relentless. So I don't even know.
Dude,
because all the bad comments get the most likes on Twitter and Instagram.
I can remember watching a Joe Rogan video and someone saying, it was Sam Harris was on there, and Sam Harris was saying that he reads the comments, and Joe Rogan was like, do not, never read the comments.
You never read the comments. Rule number 1.
I have to tell you, though, the comments are so funny. Like, there's
exactly.
some really smart people.
And sometimes I backfire on some people because I'm like, you did not just say that. And I'm literally rolling on the floor laughing at how
they should be writers, like for the Conan O'Brien show. Some of the people, like the way they come at a comment is just so funny. There's just a bunch of dumb ones there too. But
there was one comment where it was like the emojis of like the hands and the foot, and somebody said that I had dropped them. And so I commented below and I said I never had them to begin with.
How do you get people comfortable with you whenever you come into a room and you know, like, oh, this could be a social situation? What's your mode of like, oh, this is how I'm going to put people at ease? Like, what is,
I just feel like I need to be the one that initiates the conversation and everything like that. Because the other day I was at a speaking engagement and there was this boy with autism, and he's like, that's weird. And his dad's like, don't say that, it's inappropriate. And he's like, that's not inappropriate, he's weird looking. And then I looked at him and was like, hi, what's your name? And then his dad told me his name and everything. He's like, I apologize, he has autism. I was like, no, that's totally fine, I get it every single day. And it was just more so on my side, initiating that I'm still a person, that I'm real, and that I can connect with them on any kind of level.
Well, how about on the other side where it's like people want to come up and hug you? Mm-hmm. And it's like, maybe you don't want hugged by people. Like, you can go like, hey, stay away, right? You're going to get hugged.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you deal with that?
I just hope that I have somebody else next to me so they don't kidnap me in the process.
Yeah, man, it's like, that's a funny thing because you never really think about it, but it's like the expression on your face is the only method you have to tell people, hey, no thanks, I'm going to pass on the hug. But people don't know you at all. And I'm sure you've made such a change in their lives that if they were to see you, their instincts would be to go up to you and hug you, which I'm sure knowing you that you'd be okay, that you would understand and appreciate that. Not, people don't always want people hugging them. They're totally valid as well. But, it's got to be an odd, you do a really good job of it. You do a really good job of like making people immediately feel like, okay, this is okay, right? It's okay to be here. It's like you're really easy. And then as you get to know you, it's easier and easier, But it's like, it's got to be, and you do this, you give people a break, because it's like, people don't get to see someone without arms and legs every day. So it's got to be a really interesting, they don't know how to respond. And then that not knowing how to respond becomes awkward. And then that is, someone says, hey, that's not nice, don't say that. Now that's weirder, right? So it's like, it gets out of control quick, where you have a good way of doing it. And I'm a hugger sometimes, but sometimes I don't want to hug people. So, I mean, it's an interesting concept, but you do a great job with it.
Thank you.
I feel like after watching the documentary as well, I know for me personally, it made me totally at ease with Gabe. I thought you guys did a really good job of, like, he's just a normal guy, man, just trying to do what we're all trying to do, just has more challenges, but is like, I felt like came away, just felt like a person to me at the end of that documentary, Yeah. And, with all the dreams and aspirations we all have, nothing different.
I was a little intimidated to meet you.
I think we were both really intimidated, because I remember still being a little standoffish when I first met you at my house. And I didn't really open up until I think we were in Bryce Canyon. And even then I was still a little bit standoffish until we were in Nashville.
Well, I felt like I'm not at this guy's level. This guy's like operating at another level in terms of just intensity, like focus and getting things done. So as much as I wanted selfishly to be like, oh, I got to get around this guy, right? Like I felt like I was a little bit out of my league in regards to just purpose, in like determination. So it's grown, like I said, whenever I first got to see you today, and we've been texting each other through this COVID thing. I'll send you a text and see how you're doing when I think of you. But when you see someone, that's the sign. That's the true sign. Is like when you see somebody from an old relationship, an old memory, and as soon as you see them, you just light up. Some people I see and I light down. I get extinguished. Where I'm like, oh geez, how do I work my way over here so I don't have to deal with them? But
that's the closest store.
But it's great whenever you do have people like that, and it's like, I don't know when that happens in a relationship, but like, I love to see you. It's good to see that you're doing well.
Yeah, so true.
And I'm excited for you. I think that, I'm sure the COVID thing it's funny the way things work, right? So we did this doc, and then I introduced you to some folks, and you've got new management now because of that, right? A couple of really big rock star, highfalutin people that get things done on a high level are now helping you tell that story. And I know COVID has sort of slowed that down, but I can't wait to see what you become when people get to be able to. You're like that hit artist that nobody knows about, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I can't wait for the world to hear this story and be able to then, because you tell the story, when you do tell it, you tell it in a way that's not like, let me tell you my story. It's like, let me tell you your story. As every great storyteller is like, you tell the story through the eyes of the listener or the viewer. And it really compels people to change. And I can't wait. The world needs a lot of what you have.
Thank you.
You're a special dude, man. You're one in a million. You truly are. I just wanted to thank you, man. It's been a great year for me too. And that film, I was glad my son got to see it. It's a big thing. He sees life a little bit differently.
Meeting him. He's awesome.
We had a great little crew for that.
We really did.
And Sean Hudgens, who everybody knows is impossible to be around. One of the most difficult guys to be stuck in a van. Yeah. Hey, Sean, I'm a little hungry. He pulls out a granola bar. It's like he's a robot assistant, perfect in every way.
He's awesome.
But maybe we'll get an opportunity to do something else. I mean, that would just be a icing on the cake.
Yeah, that would be really fun.
Anything you want to promote? Any websites? Any?
There is a new website going in place, so just follow my social medias to see when that gets released.
Okay. So we'll put up your Twitter or every one of your active social platforms. And there is Gabe Adams Speaker or something, right? What's the name of that one?
I don't think that one's up anymore because we're in the process of rebranding everything.
Okay. Well, why don't you tell us it anyhow, because it may be up. This is going to stay up forever. So
Okay. Right now, we're thinking between Gabe Adams KeynoteSpeaker.com or Limb-itless KeynoteSpeaker.com.
Okay, so we'll see. Maybe those will propagate in the future. But if you want, Gabe, if you want to change the culture and change the perspective of people, whether that be for a Fortune 500 company or for a group of friends and people that need to hear that message, if you can, get Gabe to come out and talk to your people. He'll change the way they see the world, as he did with me and my friends. So thank you, buddy. I appreciate you.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Gabe. Appreciate it.
Much love.
So nice meeting you.
All right. Signing off from the West Barn. We'll see you next time.